Hello again, my fellow Australians. Let us now check our first research video together. Please follow me closely. I will be attempting to make financial and legal structures understandable to you, normal people, structures which by their very nature were purposely created to look very complicated and non-transparent. Remember, I was also a lawyer for many years prior to this PM gig, and I know what I'm talking about. Why do we need to investigate banking at all? For example, whilst one of Australia's esteemed bank CEOs, Gail Kelly, bought herself one nice home for $9 million, Australia banks repossessed over 30,000 homes. Surely you say, these people should have worked harder to pay off their loans. Good point. Nevertheless, could banks be the main contributor to this problem which results in so much social challenge and human tragedy? Let me randomly choose RAMS, one of Australia's touted lenders. Rest assured that the following information applies to each and every bank in this country. The fraud which is at the root of it all is that no bank has any money to lend. In fact, they follow a practice called Securitisation, in reality selling each loan. You can search for terms like bank name plus securities or similar. As you can see, lots of results on the internet. This one looks interesting. Seems like it might have some information there. Why don't we go to the link and have a look? Wow, there are heaps of documents in here. We could come back later and investigate some more, but for now let's locate one we found with our search. Here it is. Let's open it. Okay, before we look at details, this is an actual real example of securitisation document offering to sell $750 million worth of home loans to investors. As I said earlier, all banks do this in exactly the same manner. We will dissect this one now, bit by bit. I try to make it as simple as possible. If you get stuck, simply pause the video and use Google to complement your learning. There is much to be found. You will be amazed once you grasp the sheer brilliance of this hideous crime. As a lawyer, being well versed in smoke and mirrors, I must say so myself, we begin with the secrecy of it all. Most of what you will learn sounds so very unbelievable that only the boys and girls on the inside can really know the ins and outs of it. Sit down and buckle up. This will be an exciting ride. The first thing we do is look at the structural diagram, which is much easier to understand than text on its own. What you see here is a typical securitisation transition structure provided for investors as they get published all the time. These offers generally settle inside 3 weeks from publication. Investors in what, you may ask? I get it. Stay with me now. You are the debtor here. Your monthly payments are called receivables. Now, your so-called lender does nothing else but sell these receivables. They are, in fact, never a lender. Their real and only purpose is to steal your promise to pay in form of a signed mortgage document, also known as a promissory note, so that they can flip it for cold hard cash. All they ever are is the originator at the onset, scouting and securing new loans with deceptive advertising, in fact never lending anything. Listen up here. It is actually you who is the lender, giving the only thing of real value in the transaction, and that is your signed promise. For example, here, the purported lender, as in RAMS Home Loan Lender of the Year, I'm sure you have seen the ads, then steps aside to function as the manager and continue to appear as if they were the only party you are dealing with. Now, down here, this trust is a real pillar of it all. Its function is to create offers like this one. to then convert the stolen promissory note to cash by issuing, hence call the issuer notes, a security instrument much like shares on the ASX. At this point of conversation and sale, your original loan ceases to be a loan, as it is physically impossible to be both a loan and a stock at the same time. Do they tell you this? Let's look closer at the origins of such an issuer trust. It gets established by the very party who pretends to loan to you. The moment your promissory note is sold and converted on the market, in this huge pool with many others, the trust is paid in full, and your loan amount has just been miraculously created from thin air. Enter stage 2, where you start paying back the loan and pay the impostors a second time. God forbid if you become one of the 30,000 repossessions, the lender will sell your property and get paid a third time. But hold it, they also own the mortgage insurer, who will cover them for any shortfalls in the sale, to then come after you for the full original loan amount again to get paid a fourth time. Remember how we talked about converting the mortgage to a security instrument? By law, and check this with your own legal advisor, a mortgage cannot be both a mortgage and listed security at the same time. Smokes and mirrors, my friends. Would this not change the claiming rights of your title? Great question, and yes, of course it does. In fact, the whole setup creates a great mess with respect to titles and true ownership. Have a read here. The banks, with the help of the judiciary, can only uphold this by hiding everything from the customer's eyes. This is the reason why all known cases have been brought before the Australian courts, where knowledgeable borrowers try to test their lender with the most important question: who is the true holder of the original note, the promissory note, that is. None of those cases have resulted in any success. Imagine if this rort was properly uncovered and confirmed by our judges. You would be out there chasing your bankers and politicians down the street for a remedy. I will get to this shortly, though. Let's have a look at the parties to such a structure now. As we have learned, there is a special purpose trust vehicle, also called the issuer. Next we have the seller, which in general is your perpetuated lender or one of its entities that enters into the contracts with borrowers. Next, and very important, the manager, and then the originator. As covered before, you thought this guy here is your lender. For example, hearing about RAMS, Australia's non-bank lender of the year 2010, or calling their office and getting the machine with "Welcome to RAMS Home Loans" gives nothing but the impression that they are in fact a funder, doesn't it? Genius. Who owns that media? You know by now, don't you? Looking at how this trust came about reveals that it was set up by the manager for the very purpose to flip the loans into liquid cash and nothing else. As discussed, this is not revealed to you ever. Clear now? Why isn't it? In fact, there is a lot more secrecy around the whole structure, as if one digs really deep, the question of whether this constructed internal sale is in fact nothing more than major tax evasion, as the seller is paid in full for your note totally tax-free, and every time they collect further principal payments from you. So who else could come knocking on your door? In USA over the past 3 years, with their major foreclosure crisis, many times homeowners were perplexed with several purported lenders, registered claims against their mortgage and tried to foreclose. Make no mistake, this is no different in Australia, and if things went pear-shaped, any one of the downstream intermediaries could theoretically register a claim to your surprise. So taking another look at the structure diagram here, It becomes clear how your loan, or rather your capacity and willingness to repay this unbeknownst to you fictitious mortgage, is the one and only valuable consideration in this cattle trade. Sure, the banks with their media support cleverly disguise all this so that you, the unsuspecting public, willingly accept all things like inflation or rising and falling property markets, booms and real estate bubbles, which once you see through all this, all become simple tokens of the monopoly play of slavery and servitude. Doesn't a lender need a financial license of some sort to protect the public?